Yo, what's up guys, Storm here, back with another review for you guys today. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about Pocket Summoner, Episode 1, The Dragon Master. So Pocket Summoner was something that was near and dear to my heart. I played Pocket Summoner for years, met some of my greatest friends through Pocket Summoner, and was definitely an iOS game that was a filler, if not a full-on replacement for Pokemon in the years that you weren't able to get emulators or play it mobily. You may ask, Storm, what the hell? You're telling me that there was a Pokemon replacement on the App Store? Well, not necessarily. It definitely had a lot of Pokemon themes and different ways that you could play the game. It had some automatic features, didn't get to roam around. It was definitely an app made in the early 2010s era. Definitely something that you had clans and online play, PvP, but there were so many different aspects of this game, and I will run you through them all right now. Starting with the plot, it was definitely different than a Pokemon story, so you weren't able to actually move an avatar around the room. So what you did was, you basically started this game off, gave you a tutorial, said that you were this great spirit summoner, you were able to summon guards, is what they were called. Guards essentially were Pokemon. Now guards, you were given one called Doggy, D-O-G-I, right from the start. It was just a white dog wearing a red collar that had a bone on it. It was your first guard, and you basically were sent out on a task. Now this task would take you into a quest area. Now in this quest area, it was a tap-to-play game. So essentially, each bar, it had a progress bar and the name of what you were doing. So the first one was something like, go train. It was very basic for what it was. The naming conventions were always super simple. It was made by a developer in Singapore, so English was not a first language, as you could tell by some of the updates that they put out and some of the naming conventions they used for guards. But I'm getting beside my point here. You went out and you had a progress bar. You had one button that said train or fight or whatever aspect of it you were doing. So you would hit the button, it would spend one energy point. Energy points were refilled only by time or by coins. Now coins were in-app purchases that you had to make, or were given to you daily once the game got to a further iteration. You would spend one energy point to go one quest. This bar would need to be filled 10 times for you to finish the quest, 3 for earlier iterations just because your energy bar was much lower. As you leveled up your energy and your SP, your spirit points, went up as you increased in level. So this went on for a number of training areas you went through. There was a couple areas like a dark forest, and then there was the sand dunes. So the sand dunes is where the story really started to progress. Essentially, you came across somebody known as the Dark Summoner, and they were just fudging up all of the guards in the area. They were screwing around, doing experiments, and they were super powerful. So, the Dark Summoner was arguably one of the toughest people in the game to start. It was the only NPC you really fought until the end game. Now, Dark Summoner had a team full of, obviously, dark-type guards. Now, these dark guards were incredibly powerful in the early game, making it a grind to want to beat this person. People had strategies and discussions and everything across the app, across Discord, across an app called Poweringo. It was just absolutely nuts trying to beat this guy. And people had different strategies and different guard setups because there were so many combinations you could make. You had a three guard team, and essentially you had to put it together in a way that you thought you were going to have strategy, advantage, etc. over this summoner. Now here was the fun part about Pocket Summoner. Unlike Pokemon, every time your guard leveled up, you got to distribute where the points went. If you wanted it to be a speed guard, you could distribute points to speed, you could distribute points to attack, you could distribute points to magic attack, defense, whatever you wanted to put it into, you could essentially just slap those points into it, except for HP, which was set based on level. Now, given that you could do this, each guard had its own attributes that gave bonuses in certain typings. So there was a guard called Chicky. It was a very small chicken and an egg, super fast. It had 2 stars in the speed, which meant any points you put in got doubled. It was incredibly fast. It broke the game. People were like putting every point into speed they could to watch this thing just attack and attack and attack and attack and attack, until Rita finally had to put out an update making it so guards could only attack during PvP 3 times, because the battles are getting way too long and putting way too much stress on their servers. made PvP in the game infinitely replayable, to the point where you were just focusing solely on strategy. You didn't have to actually use attacks. The battles ran automatically, so all of the thinking went into the front end, and then it was mindless after that. You could watch it happen. PvP was a whole different kind of strategy, which we'll get to in a later part of the episode, but this is a very important aspect of the game, was how customizable it was to make your team. Later on in the episode, you find out that the Dark Summoner has actually been working for someone known as Dr. X. Dr. X was attempting to open a seal that was keeping what is known as the Dark Lord or the Dark Dragon away from this realm. During that part of the episode, you will actually find that he summons out some of the powerful demons that are trapped away, kind of the ones that are protecting the Dark Lord, his earliest armies, his right-hand men. They were guards known as like Chaos, Wicked, Nefarious, Outcast, etc., stuff like that. They were super powerful, and you had to go in and beat all of them before you even had a chance to go at this dragon. The dragon fight was a really incredible fight. You had to go through, you had to train for it. You had to go in hoping that you could just squeak by the hair on your chin. Once you got through that fight, though, Dr. X was defeated, and in later iterations of the game, you were actually given a clan certificate for beating him. Now, this clan certificate led into arguably one of the best designed features of this game and what made it so successful. Clans were incredibly honorable to start and have. It showed your power, it showed that you had completed the main story, you had gotten through, and then you had to recruit people into these clans. So clans were groups that came together, and essentially every day there was what was known as a crystal extraction. These extractions essentially gave you and your clan crystals to spend in your clan shop. Clan shops were leveled up by the amount of crystals a clan got as a total, and then the crystals that you got could be spent on things in the clan shop. Clan Shop opened up a number of things like new items, imprints in a later iteration, which I'll explain later, and more guards and evolution items for guards, which made it absolutely critical for you to be in a clan, because this is where all of the updates started pushing to in later iterations. Story, for the most part, is done at this point. Everything filtered into this player versus player, clan versus clan types. Now, every day, clans had an extraction. To have a good extraction, you had to protect your crystals. So every day, you would have to spend 5 SP spirit points to defend your crystals with a team. Essentially, you had to win to protect your crystals. People could go down a list, find the name of your clan, attack it. They'd have to go PvP versus somebody randomly defending. These people defending would either win or lose. If you won your defense, you didn't lose any crystals, but if you lost, you'd be knocked out for the next 30 minutes unless you went back and defended again, and you would lose a percentage of your crystals. Now, every other day, there was a way, an algorithm, that moved you up or down the list. It was not always whoever had the most crystals would be on top. They moved you in and out, so every day you wouldn't be at the top, absolutely getting bombarded. Now, in my opinion, this was not something that they should have done. This should have been survival of the fittest. It would have kept people interested, engaged, fair. But instead, the political climate got a little bit too crazy, with people saying we need to not attack the people at the top so we can get these updates more often, so we can all grow and make this game go more quickly, which inevitably was the downfall of the game. But I will be getting more into that later. Back to PvP. PvP was essential and critical. It determined how good you were as a player. You could go through and actually see in people's profile pages something known as reputation. You could see win-losses. You could see the ratio, make assumptions on how good people were. And it was truly critical at the beginning, because when clans first came out, no one knew how many people were going to be allowed in a clan. Most people assumed it would be 3, some people thought it would be 5, some people thought it would be 100. Really kind of depended on what Rita wanted to do. So Rita came out with 3 different options. All of them were varying based on how much your crystal extraction would be worth. The base option was a 20-person clan, which arguably was one of the best sizes for it. The next one was a 30-person clan, and then the top one being a 50-person clan. So in these clans, you would essentially get your own group message. You would band together, try and defend your crystals, come up with new strategies, fight off other clans, defend off other clans, and it was just a wild time. It was the closest to all-out strategy you'd ever seen in the game before, more than just trying to find a team, get it to level 100 like in Pokemon, find the right natures. You actually had to think a little bit further than that. You had to distribute points. 1 or 2 points off in any category could throw you. You had to think about what would break the other person's teams, the formations. You had to go switch teams. You had to break in. And it was just absolutely wild to watch what people would do. The creativity, thinking through new guards as they came out, making new builds, having multiple builds of the same guard. You had to go back and forth and find the perfect balance in your team. One to defend, one to attack, one for quest. It was just a lot. And that was what made it great. It gave it so much time. You had so many options. And it was truly your own option. Because there is no right or wrong way to do something. Now, there were easier ways to do something, and there were harder ways to do something, but either way, you could have still gotten to the answer. So you didn't need to follow a guide. You didn't need to have everybody's build. You could have figured it out with enough trial and error, which is what a lot of people did. But then people started following the meta further, and they tried putting together these teams that everybody had, so everybody could break them. So a friend of mine and I use his player name for the sake of his privacy. His name was Koma in the game. So Koma and I started our own clan. Now, clans had gotten super political, and this is the point I wanted to bring up earlier. Essentially, people had gotten very touchy about how many crystals they were losing, and people were very disappointed that higher level clans weren't getting full extractions every day because it slowed down updates. Every clan shop brought in new guards, new items, which essentially meant a new meta. And people wanted that to keep the game interesting. Though, the game was already interesting, and people made it so political. You couldn't move clans without being banished from one. You couldn't go and attack somebody without being retaliated for. And it became this wars and allies situation where you had to go through, and people were just quitting the game left and right because it was too stressful. And it was a child's game. It truly was. It was a Pokemon-esque type mobile game. And people made it into this political madhouse. But the thing is, that's why I loved it. You had to play these people. You had to manipulate. You had to think about the next step. You had to make your own clan. You had to hop between clans. You had to change your name. You had to share ideas. It was a huge political ball of fire. So Koma and I made our own clan. And essentially, it was a hit squad. We called ourselves the Dropouts because we were done. We were there to have fun and cause riots. And we did. Essentially, top-tiered clans, we had backdoor deals with people. They would let us go into their clan shop if we attacked X, Y, or Z. We went through, and just for fun, we would tear people apart. And people thought we were absolutely horrible for it. We went through and we were devastating this game. We went through and people believed, truly believed, that the only way that this game was going to be fun is if we let one person sit on the throne. And that's not how we wanted it. We wanted to see the top people struggling, clawing, scratching, everything they could to get to the top, but instead they were so complacent with this one clan, Summoner Kings, staying at the top. And honestly, I liked most of the guys in Summer Kings. I couldn't complain. One of the girls that was in the clan, her name was Spinny. She was wonderful. Absolutely great people. I had nothing against Summer Kings. I just wanted to see the game be played the way it was meant to be. It was supposed to be this power struggle. It was supposed to be difficult. It was supposed to incite all of this different creativity, and watching people just go back and forth and try and fight and find all of these new concepts. Creative ways to beat each other and defend. But instead it just was the same meta over and over and over until the game finally started slowing down. They stopped updating it. They stopped pushing out clan updates. They were slowing down. Rita was a bunch of college developers that did it to pay for college for the most part. They didn't have the time to keep pushing out these updates. I'm sure they got developer jobs other places. But when it started slowing down, that's when things really started to devolve. People were getting angry. They were making horrible videos. They were sending emails to the support, absolutely bombarding these people because their app wasn't updating. And to be honest, this thing was a money machine. As I said earlier in the game, coins were the only way that you could refill without waiting. You could refill your energy and your spirit points, so you could quest and you could battle. It was the only way to level up. But people just got so angry. They'd spent all this money on this game. You could buy something called VIP, where you would only have to wait half the time for the cooldown times, and you were getting double the experience points. And it was a major investment most people put in. But to be that hateful and that angry, and have to have a game master actually come in and take down clan messages saying all of these fake things about the company and why they were shutting down, it got out of hand. And that was not ever what was meant to be intended for the game, which made me really sad. Unfortunately, the dropouts eventually disintegrated. The leader of the clan, which was not Koma or I, disbanded the clan after getting enough hate and hazing from other people, and we have not spoken to him to this day about what happened. We have not heard from him, and it was truly sad because he was one of our good friends in that game, and he just kind of went off the face of the earth after getting so much hate from so many people. Up until that point, the social aspect of the game had actually been wonderful. It was a great way for people to connect. You could message anyone in the game one-on-one. You had great group clan chats. The only thing about the messaging system that I really didn't appreciate was the Game Master had an announcements tab that nothing really ever came through. And when it did, it was poorly written and didn't give a whole lot. So now I'm going to go into things done well by Pocket Summoner and Rita. The messaging system, for its time, was phenomenal. At the time, it was up to date with the most current version of iOS. It looked a lot like the messaging system, but it was customized to the app. It was wonderful. Like I said, you could talk to a clan in a group chat, you could talk one-on-one with people, and you could start all these discussion tabs and chains, and it was arguably one of the best social messaging apps on the store at that point. Clan formations. When they made clans the first time, wonderful addition. People went nuts for it. It was a great way to get people together, talking, using the game in the way it was meant to be. Clan Shop, early game, before they stopped updating, was awesome. You'd get new guards, new items. It was a great way for them to test out all of these new things that they wanted to put in the game, new features, new items, things like imprints that essentially would give your beast an ability. And it was wonderful. And then they had unique guards, which were overpowered guards that would go into your formation. You could only have one. They'd have some crazy ability. One of them was known as the Clown, and essentially it would transform one of the opponent's guards in just a piece of trash one that had bad moves and a bad defense set to it. And it was just funny because they had so many good creative ideas that kept going into the shop. So we were hoping that as they went down the road, it'd be wonderful and keep going, and it just didn't. But clan shops arguably were one of the best places in the game to get new things. And then just utilizing all those new features they put in the game, they took a lot of long shots. They put a lot of things in that would have confused the game, completely break the game, and they weren't afraid to do it. So, hats off to them there. But things they did horribly wrong. They did a poor job of updating the game. One of the last updates they pushed out was something called the Beast Plains. Beast Plains was a questing area, and essentially, before that, one of the highest levels in the game would have been, I think it was in the mid-50s at that point. It was very hard, and it was a grind, and it took time to get to that level. I would have probably been about level 47 at that time. When they put Beast Plains out, before they fixed it the first time, somebody figured out how to break the game, went through, and jumped from level like 38 to 116. It was broken. There was ways it was set to be a way that it would automatically update. It'd be continuously grindable based on your level, but people found a way to be a low level and break it so you could beat all these high level monsters. And it was set with a condition of an imprint and an attribute. Essentially, it was counter and endurance. So endurance would leave you with 1 health, and counter would take all of the damage you took plus what your damage would have been and shifted it all back to the attacking guard, no matter what the power was. So you could only have 1,300 health, and you could have dealt back 130,000 worth of damage. Absolutely crazy. Broken. Next thing is lack of communication. They did a poor job of communicating when things were going to be down, why things weren't getting updated. When problems happened, they did not step in the right ways. They did not communicate why problems were being dealt with, etc. Storyline, honestly, it was pretty lacking to start with. The Dr. X, Dark Dragon storyline, it was there. It was good to grind. I mean, it only took a matter of months to beat, and that was because you had to grind like an absolute crazy amount to get there. But there was nothing else after that. The Beast Plains was nothing. They put it all into clan shops, and the story just died. Next two things actually are probably the most disappointing that come from Rita. They had 2 other projects in the working. They were helping out another developer with a game called Little Masters, which ultimately was another Pokemon ripoff, but even more so like Pokemon, which ultimately got shut down. It was another kind of money grab. And then what was supposed to be their follow-up to episode 1, it was their prologue to Pocket Summoner called Pocket Summoner Origin, which was very similar to Stardew Valley mixed with Pocket Summoner. And it just didn't have the same appeal, it didn't grab anyone's attention, and ultimately fell off of the App Store as well. Not to mention all of the lawsuits that came through. They were found to be using Pokemon assets, they were stealing from Digimon. You could find all of the art assets they had stolen from other places and put it together, and after a certain point, they couldn't keep up with server costs, they couldn't keep up with artist costs. Things were falling apart really fast, and then the App Store finally announced that they were no longer going to support 32-bit games, which Pocket Summoner was, and it finally fell from grace. Now, Pocket Summoner is great. There's no denying that. It gave me some of the best years of gaming in my life, some of the best thrills, meeting some of the best people, and it's just sad to have seen it fallen so far, because if they'd kept updating it, it could have been one of the next Dungeons and Dragons. It could have been one of the next Clash of Clans. It was very well up there. At its peak, it had roughly 32,000 different players. It was starting to get a following on YouTube. People were making videos about it. People were discussing the PvP. The people that they had playing were super loyal. And it was just going great places. But given all of that, its flaws, its perfections, everything it had, I'm going to rate it a 7 out of 10. For this time, it's been Storm Review.